Hello everyone, how is it going? An important thing to remember is that OCD is looking to pounce at every opportunity. Everything that it could possibly pounce at, it will try. So anything in the past, any mistake, any time you may have acted immorally, anything that you may have done wrong, any decision that you may have turned out to be a wrong decision when you look back later on, any decision that you make in the now, hence why most OCD sufferers do tend to be quite indecisive because they are so terrified of making the wrong decision, because the responsibility aspect is jacked right up. The angle of how could you ever accept yourself if you made the wrong choice, you couldn't live with yourself, and so on. So OCD is going to cut through logic. It's going to jump through hoops to find a way to pounce on particular things. Let's look at the guilt and shame. Now, when I was stuck with real event false memory, OCD was completely making things up. Completely. Now, of course, we can't just tell yourself that, oh, it's all made up, it's just OCD. That isn't going to work. That becomes reassurance. But for example, I could be walking down the street and the OCD would have latched, not necessarily at the time, but let's say when I got home from walking past somebody in the street, and it will latch to, you touched that person inappropriately, or you pushed that person in the road, or you did something to that person, or whatever it was. Now, although at the time, as a compulsion, I would have crossed the road, so logically, I would have knew that, well, it wouldn't have been possible to have pushed them or touched them because I'm across the other side of the bloody road. So it wouldn't have been possible. But guess what? OCD doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't care about that. It couldn't care less about logic because it cut through that like a knife through butter. Because it's saying, hang on a minute, Sam, the fact that you even thought about this, the fact that you even had that thought of doing something wrong or pushing somebody or touching somebody, forget that you crossed the road, forget that you did the compulsion. This is where you know you're in trouble, is that when you're doing the compulsions and you're still getting triggered, and OCD's latching, OCD's just cutting through the compulsions. When you're not even getting relief from the compulsion, it's like a drug addict not even getting relief from the drug. Okay, you know you're in a pretty serious place, and I've been there. And many people are in that position, maybe you are watching this video, where you do the compulsion and you don't even get relief from that. And that is when things need to change. The only way is up from there. And I've been there. The times where I'd be confessing, I'd be seeking reassurance, I'd be working things out in my head, trying to solve, trying to figure out, trying to get to the bottom of, trying to achieve some kind of certainty. And although I felt like I achieved something or got some relief, it never lasted, and I couldn't even get the hit. I couldn't even get the relief. I couldn't even get the change of feeling that I was desiring so much that I was chasing. I couldn't even get that. So the compulsions wouldn't even bring me any success, any relief, not even any temporary relief. So I knew I was in trouble, so I knew I had to take a different path. But back to what I was saying, OCD don't give a crap about logic. And this is why you can't keep telling it, oh yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. I know I didn't. I crossed the road. What are you talking about? I crossed the road. I didn't do anything wrong. I definitely crossed the road. And as a compulsion, next time you might film yourself crossing the road. So you could go, right, look, I'm filming myself crossing the road. I'm definitely next to nobody. I haven't walked next to anybody. I've definitely done something wrong. You press stop recording, right? You get back, you check your phone as you get home. Your OCD's going, no, you touched somebody. You definitely touched somebody. You're like, no, I didn't. Look at the video. I haven't touched anybody. Your brain goes, yeah, but what if you did after the video? What if that video is bullshitting you? What if that's lying you? You've got a doubting disorder. You're going to doubt everything. There's nothing that you can do that will out-convince OCD. OCD is very good at auto-suggesting things. It's very good at doing that. So even like, you thought about that, that's it, guilt forever. You didn't cross the road quick enough, guilt forever. I'll give you another example. Let's say you're driving in the car, right? And you're driving along, you're trundling along, minding your own business, not a care in the world, freely as you go, smiling, listening to the music, driving along, all right? And all of a sudden, somebody falls off their bike, across the road from you. They fall off the bike, and you've clocked it, you've noticed it. And then you might think, oh, okay, that person's helping them, that pedestrian's helping them, or somebody's got out of their car to help them. You think nothing of it, they're going to be okay, and you move on. And you carry on into work, right? And then what OCD will then do, it will then go, what if you cause the accident? What if you unknowingly, as you were driving along, minding your own business, as you were changing the radio station to put your favourite tune on, how do you know you didn't hit them and they didn't go sliding across into the road and went down there? How did you know that? How did you know that? And it also got on the magical thinking side of things. It said, what is if you were driving along and you had a thought about something and that meant that they then fell off their bike and then got injured? You're at fault, you're responsible, you're guilty forever, you can never be let off the hook, there's no wriggle room, that's it, guilty forever, bye. And you're thinking, what the fuck? Hang on a minute, OCD. Let me say something back, hang on, right? It's like that judge and executioner scene where it's like, the judge is constantly, you're constantly sentenced to years in your life. No, you've done this. You can't even talk back. You're trying to gather evidence to fight back. No, you've done this, you've done that, you've done this, you've done this, you've done that. Anything that you come back with, no, you don't care, you've done this, you've done that, you've done this, you've done that. And that's what it was like in my head for years, right? In my years. For years and years and years. And there were things that had stuck. There were things that had latched. It was like similar memories or the same memory, but then it would move around. So I feel like I got relief on one, but then it would move around and it would go back to the other one. I thought I was over one and it would switch back to the other one again. And then something would happen like that morning. That's all I could think about for weeks of thinking, what the fuck happened that morning? Or as soon as it happens, you then think, oh my God, that's going to get me forever. And the problem is, right? The problem is, because it comes in with complete conviction and realness, what then happens is that with the example that I did around the driving your car, and just because somebody's on the floor over there, you'll then avoid driving your car. And this is where the compulsions come in. That's what led me to being housebound with OCD and real event false memory, because I was so convinced that if I get out of my car, then I would do it again. But it also thought, everything that I do now, I'm going to feel guilty. And I was terrified of driving along and thinking, oh my God, if OCD is capable of getting me on that, even though logically I know I didn't do anything, but it doesn't matter with OCD, it doesn't care about that. But he's like, I can't do anything now, because if he can get me on anything that I know that I didn't do, it's going to get you on something else. So then you start avoid driving your car, and then you then start avoiding leaving your house. But then you're even getting triggered at home. You're even getting triggered by doing something at home or thinking about something at home or whatever. It's going to find a way in. Okay, don't give a crap about that. And this is why unconditional acceptance is so important. Right? I got many people on phone calls saying, yeah, but Sam, I didn't do anything. I know I didn't do anything. And I say, okay, fair enough. But OCD doesn't care. We have to understand that OCD doesn't give a fuck about whether you know you didn't do something. Because it will just cut through that, I'm afraid. Because it'll be like, yeah, but what about this? How do you know that? Yeah, but hang on a minute. Forget that you crossed the road. Forget that you were 100 yards away. Forget that you were the other side of the road. Forget all that. You even thought about this. Or no, you got no evidence, OCD. OCD will have no evidence at times. And it'll be like, no, you've done this. And the guilt will just completely, for me, it was consumed. I was completely glued in that cycle, that torturous, tormenting cycle. And I kept trying to say, I didn't do anything. I know I didn't do anything. Doesn't matter. I start seeking reassurance. My friends or my partner would say, you've done nothing wrong. What are you talking about? Well, how are you talking about? Done nothing wrong. You're over the side of the road. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Don't matter to OCD, because boom, OCD's found the spark. It's found the trigger. It's found the cue, which then leads to that emotional reaction. Boom, locks on, done. That's all it needs. Doesn't need much. But this is why we have to go towards belief work. This is why thoughts of thoughts is nonsense. It's irrelevant. How can you tell somebody that's convinced they've done something wrong, even though they were the other side of the road, that a thought is just a thought? How is that going to work? Right? Because I'm sure they'd have told them that. If a thought was just a thought, I'm sure they'd have just said, a thought is just a thought. Okay, done. Guilt's gone. Doesn't work like that. OCD is laughing in your face. It's mocking you. It's taking the absolute piss with you, because it knows that you're going to keep trying to work it out. And it knows you can't work it out. It knows that it's going to manipulate things. OCD is very good at putting its own spin on things. It twists things. It's very good at doing that. It's a genius. It's very sneaky. It can mimic anything. It can convince you of anything. The realness of anything is nuts. And think what I hear in this job. I hear things where I'm like, there's just no logic to that at all. But I understand the OCD latching mechanism. I know what it's doing there, because as soon as it's given a 0.001% chance, It's looking to pounce at the opportunity. And this is what leaves people housebound. This is what leaves people avoiding things. This is what leads people doing compulsions, because they then get scared of the guilt or the shame or the anxiety or the panic that they feel. They're then scared of OCD. They're scared of what OCD is capable of. They're scared of what OCD can latch to. They're scared of what OCD can make up and twist and manipulate. They're scared of that. But you can't live life scared of that, I'm afraid. You're going to have to go and live your life getting triggered. You have to go and live your life letting OCD latch to whatever it's going to latch to. You're going to have to continue breaking down your beliefs with unconditional acceptance, especially with real event false memory, because that only stopped happening for me. My brain only stopped scanning for things for me, regardless of the logic or not, because it could go after real events too. It can go after genuine things that you've done wrong. Maybe you made a wrong decision. Maybe you said something rude on a night out. Maybe you got into a fight on a night out drunk. Maybe you, I don't know, said something mean to somebody. Maybe you actually did harm somebody. Maybe you punched somebody. Maybe you got angry and pushed somebody over, right? You know, people will do things like that. People will make mistakes. People will do bad things, right? So it's understanding that, yes, it's going to latch to that, but please don't underestimate. It's going to then just make stuff up and twist things and then convince you of that with the same amount of guilt, right? It doesn't matter if you've done something, it's the guilt's going to feel the same. It doesn't matter. Like if you genuinely punch somebody compared to just you haven't thought about it, the guilt could be the same. It doesn't matter with OCD, right? It's going to cut through that. And there's no point saying, oh, I didn't do anything, wasted time. Complete waste of time. Falls on deaf ears. It doesn't matter. OCD isn't listening, I'm afraid. Okay? And you can get yourself in such a state and in such a stew, an emotional stew, if you keep screaming, yeah, but I didn't do anything. It doesn't matter. I remember once I was screaming in the mirror. I had tears in my eyes saying, I didn't fucking do anything. I just didn't fucking do anything. Why is it latching to this? For fuck's sake. Didn't do anything. OCD was going. And I in that moment, I got a bit of relief. It was almost like I shouted out of me. It was almost like I screamed out of me. And then you're talking minutes later, what had happened? It hit me from a different angle, didn't it? It found something else. It found a way in through the back door. And it snuck in. And it went, yeah, but you haven't thought about this. Oh, and round we went again. And then it then just twisted, morphed, find something else. It didn't work. And this is why we can't vent our way to recovery. We can't work it out. If I worked it out, right, all we would do on these calls would work out your worst case scenario. We'd work out your real event. We'd work out your false memory. We'd work out your attraction fears. We'd sit and work it out. We'd figure it out. We'd all both get notepad out and go, right, explain to me the time and day. Just paint the picture. Picture the scene for me. Use your imagination. We're going to list, what tree did you see? Now, what angle was that? Was this angle? Did you move your arm that way? Or did you move your head this way? Or did you move your... That ain't going to do anything, right? Could you imagine what a waste of time that would be? Because you'd do all of that, and you'd come off that call, and then you go, oh, hang on a minute, I wasn't honest about that. Well, hang on a minute, I don't know, so what about this? Disastrous approach, right? The only way forward here, and this is hard, but this changed my life, was learning to accept myself, even if whatever OCD's saying was real. Even if it happened. Even if it were true. Even if I'd done something wrong. Because that got over real event and it got over false memory. Real event OCD, if you've genuinely done something wrong. If you've genuinely done something immoral or made a bad decision or did a bad action, you can still apply unconditional self-acceptance to yourself. And with the false memory, whatever OCD is spinning, whatever it's twisting, whatever it's manipulating, and we don't call it real event / false memory. We obviously do to help you separate that, but ultimately it's the same principle. It's the unconditional self-acceptance, even if it was real or not, because the false memory will feel real. So it will feel like a real event anyway. So it's the same tools. So even if it were real, how can you learn to accept yourself and ultimately be at peace with yourself? And that's what's going to help you get under it. And I'm gonna leave it on this. Something I want you to really think about. And this is why the third book, The Myth of Self-Esteem, on our reading list completely changed my life. And there's many other books talking about this, but this one particularly around unconditional self-acceptance, the third book on our reading list, The Myth of Self-Esteem, it's so critical because it breaks down the concepts of good and bad people. It also shows how you can learn to accept yourself unconditionally, even if you did wrong, with all the different concepts. And we break this down in one-to-ones, by the way. We're going to go in depth into your particular fear, into whatever it is latched to, and we're going to rip it apart, dissect it bit by bit, piece by piece, and get under it, chip away again and again and again. It can't be a one call fix. It can't just suddenly go after one call. You can't just suddenly read one page of a book and then it's all gone, I'm afraid. It's going to take consistent application of the new way of thinking, but you really can get under it. But I'm going to leave you on this. Always remember that humans can be guilty of something, but feeling guilty is a self-created matter. It's a self-inflicted wound. We choose to feel guilty by the beliefs that we're holding. And that is exactly what we will tackle in our one-to-ones. We'll look to see how, even if you've done something wrong, how you would choose to feel chronic guilt yourself by the beliefs and your perspectives and your outlook on the situation, and ultimately how you're rating yourself, the undeservingness, the I don't deserve this, I'm the worst person ever, I'm worthless, I'm terrible, I can't be happy, I can't enjoy my life, nothing else matters. Okay, what's the point? Life is meaningless, life isn't worthwhile. That right there is the beliefs fueling it, and we will tackle that. But the third book, The Myth of Self-Esteem, really opens your eyes to that. Okay, so that's something very, very important to remember. Now, as you do apply the unconditional acceptance, it doesn't mean you're agreeing with any kind of bad behavior. You're not trying to justify bad behavior. You're not trying to excuse bad behavior. You're just seeing that as a fallible, imperfect human being, how you could accept yourself, even if you did do wrong. And that does not mean you're letting the bad behavior off, but you're just seeing all the ins and outs of a human being and how that can happen, and ultimately how you can learn to unconditionally accept yourself, which then eliminates the chronic emotional disturbance of chronic guilt, chronic shame, chronic anxiety, self-hatred, self-neglect, self-punishment, self-beratement, self-loathing, self-lambasting, all these things that we do. I was in a self-sabotaging cycle, just hated myself, didn't care about myself, neglected myself, didn't want to be here because of chronic guilt and shame. So there is a way out. There really, really is. I've been there. I've been in your shoes. Okay, so we have to understand that the guilt that we're feeling is self-inflicted. Okay, and we will break that down with time. OCD will pounce at the first opportunity that it can with guilt and shame, and it will lock in. It will lock in. It will firmly grip in like a vice. Firmly gripped. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to budge at all until we can start applying unconditional acceptance. Anything that I tried to do to escape chronic guilt, couldn't do it. Just any distraction. Nope. Sorry, Sam. Doesn't work. Can't get there. No relief. Can't be let off the hook. How dare you even think about laughing? How dare you even think about enjoying yourself? No, get back down. That's what it was like. How dare you? How dare you try and let yourself off the hook? Until I started to apply unconditional self-acceptance, and then the wheels started to turn, the cogs started to move, and I really started to make huge strides towards my recovery journey, which I now live in mental freedom, mental clarity, mental liberation. I feel free. I don't feel like I'm in the shackles of chronic guilt and shame. And I'm feeling good, right? But that takes time to get there, okay? You don't have to live a lifetime of chronic guilt and shame. You really can get out of this cycle. You really, really can. There is hope, and I am cheering you on. I'm willing you on, but getting help is going to be key to understand not only what to do, but how to get there. Not only where to get, as in I know I need to apply unconditional acceptance, but how do I do that? And we can certainly help with that. And that's emailing phil@ocdrecovery.com. My name is Sam. You also have other coaches here. You have Rob, Nick, Momin, Gemma, and Elliot, all doing coaching calls. We are very busy, but we can get you booked in as soon as we possibly can in our schedules. And we can get you booked in next week, or as soon as you get in touch, we can check our schedules and get you in. If any cancellation comes up, we can fit you in as soon as we can, because we are very keen to get your recovery journey started and make strides towards recovery. Anyway, guys, hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please leave a like. That is much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then please do so. Take care, guys. You don't have to live like this forever. You can overcome the chronic guilt and shame. It takes time, but there is so much hope. I'm backing you, and you're not alone. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.